Hi there. Thanks for joining me. So, I was listening to a podcast this week, and someone mentioned the term navel gazing, which I've always found to be kind of an amusing term. And oftentimes it's used, it can be used as a sort of derogatory term for things like psychotherapy or any other kind of form of self-inquiry or self-contemplation. Now, the reason I find it amusing is because, well, for one thing, there's already a huge stigma around mental health or mental inquiry along those lines. And this kind of feeds into it in many ways. The idea being that taking time to reflect on yourself is self-indulgent and therefore a waste of time because, well, I guess you're not producing for society at that point. You're actually doing something for yourself. But the irony of it is that you're not just doing something for yourself, because the fact is, becoming more self aware is actually good for society. I mean, there are so many people out there in the world who are completely lacking in self awareness, who are doing a lot of damage in their lives, in their personal worlds, as well as out in the world. So, self inquiry or self reflection, I think, is a very valuable use of time. Now, there are ways you can do that that could be more or less helpful or unhelpful. So, that might be the part that we can talk a little bit more about. For one thing, there is a kind of self absorbed rumination that a lot of people can get caught up in. And this is the kind of thing that leads to depression or anxiety. It's basically finding yourself thinking about yourself and your problems all the time. But because you're kind of have tunnel vision around these things, you're actually not reaching solutions. You're really just kind of going round and round in a maze, running around in a maze, looking for an answer that isn't there because it's the maze of your dark thoughts. So, that kind of self absorbed thinking is not particularly helpful. However, a kind of self reflection that enables you, the wiser part of you, the wiser mind, some people call it the wise mind or the observing ego, using that part of yourself to reflect on yourself in a non judgmental, compassionate way can be very helpful. And part of it has to do with the relationship that you can develop with your thoughts in this way. Now, meditation is one way that people develop this kind of relationship with their thoughts. It's a way of observing your thoughts without being caught up in them. Because the fact of the matter is that so many people who are, I would say, lacking in self-awareness are caught up in their thoughts and they're acting out of the emotions that they're feeling in that moment. So the fact of the matter is that taking time, whether it's time, during a therapy or a coaching session, to step outside of your thoughts and observe them and question them, that can only be good for you and it can only be good for society. So, again, partly what meditation teaches us is that we are not our thoughts. And, I've talked to people before about this many times, and they'll ask the question, well, if I'm not my thoughts, what am I? You know? Well, good question. And that's a whole other topic that I won't get into today. But really what you are is the bigger piece of that, the observer. You are the observer, that part of yourself that can actually step outside your thoughts and feelings and see what's going on and try to make sense of it or put it in perspective. So that's just what this, when I heard the term navel gazing, it just made me think about this because if anything, we need more people in our society who are willing to question the thoughts that run through their heads and that aren't just keen on acting on anything that comes in their heads from one moment to the next. I mean, that's kind of why we're in the jam that we're in right now as a species, is because people are not really reflecting from a wise place. They're just acting on the momentary thoughts that flow through their minds. And that's not necessarily the wisest place to be acting or living from. So, this is the purpose of processes like psychotherapy and transformative coaching, is to help you see outside your illusions, because everyone has illusions. I mean, the nature of thought is that it is illusory. And we all have blind spots. We all have massive blind spots that we're not even aware of. You can't grow up and be conditioned in this world without them. We are all raised by people, well-intentioned people most of the time, who, form our psyches with certain beliefs and belief systems, and we then create our own interpretations out of those things, and those become these webs of meaning. And we are living each day and every day through these webs of meaning. So to take the time to explore those things, unpack them, deconstruct them, is again not just valuable for you so that you can be free of some illusions that may not be helping you, but it's so helpful for society so that we can actually create a wiser society, a society that isn't just about racing to some finish line that doesn't even exist. So before you discount practices like psychotherapy or coaching as being navel gazing or self-indulgent, I invite you to think about it from a different perspective. Because actually, if everyone were thinking a little more thoughtfully, a little more reflectively about themselves versus just doing all the time without thought, without too much thought, then again, we might have a wiser world by this time. So think about that. Curious what you think. Feel free to comment below. And if you're interested in any more inspiration or support, I would love for you to join me in my online community. I'm going to be launching a course in a few months, date TBD, on burnout, and that's going to be in the community. I will let you know more about that as soon as it gets closer. But just in this world we're living in today of pandemic burnout, pandemic fatigue, and a lot of different industries that are full of people who are really frayed these days, I have put together a course to support them. So if that's you, then stick around, because that's going to be coming up in a couple of months. In the meantime, I would love to have you in the community. So information is in the box below, and I hope you have a wonderful week.